Good afternoon. It's really late in the afternoon. It's really good to see you guys being focused, and I hope you can observe all these discussion points because as much as I've been at the agency for so long, I'm learning a lot from today's presentation. So I hope you're doing the same as well. In terms of this workshop, you got some surprises, which we weren't expecting, which was the FDA commissioner came to our workshop, and it was really pleasant to see him. So I hope you understand the nature and the importance of our work that we do at the agency, and it's really good to see you here. I've been with the agency for almost 25 years, so about 15 years in the new drug domain, and about I'm approaching 10 years in the generic drugs. So what I'm here to present is from my regulatory experiences and how you may be able to benefit from what we do in terms of the PSG development. I kind of put some learning objectives, but I'm not gonna kind of go into very specifics because I think I cover some of the fundamental items about PSGs and what we usually recommend in my presentation about several years ago with one of the panel members who's sitting here, Dave, from the OGDP, our policy group. So I thought maybe I should kind of cover little different topics which may be relevant, and I hope you find them useful. What I try to capture is in terms of the PSGs and our recommendations, I've been struggling in terms of how do we kind of convey our message clearly to the applicants, and how can you benefit from our documents. So I try to shift from different perspectives. So each word that we put in our PSGs, I question my division folks in terms of what are we specifically recommending and what's the reason behind that. So with that in mind, I'm trying to kind of convey to you that we are trying to be as transparent as possible and try to convey our recommendation in a proactive manner instead of being reactive. So with that in mind, I put some learning objectives. So in terms of the FDA's key messages, once again, I'm trying to be as proactive as possible when we develop PSGs for oral drug products. And my division has been working on this PSG development for quite some time. So with that, you heard from Joe's presentation about M13A recommendations, how not last year, it's almost approaching 2 years, October of 2024, we actually updated PSGs of the IR products based on the M13A, and some topics on the BCS-based biowaiver. We get that questions a lot. And the suitability petitions, you heard very great presentations this afternoon regarding the suitability petitions. So we are trying to be proactive as well on that topic. And cross-referencing, which I'm going to cover shortly, and then the narrow therapeutic drug index products. And once again, my goal is to be as transparent as possible and try to convey why we are recommending whatever that recommendations are in the PSGs. So with that, briefly, this is the work that we are very proud of. The M13 implementations of the oral products, immediate release oral products, based on the M13A guidance that was published in October of 2024. We actually updated over 800 PSGs and going from 2 studies, fasting and fat BE studies, to 1 study, whether it's a fasting or one fat study, which was significant contributions, I feel like. And the So as of now, we do have a little more than 1,000. So we are approaching 1,500 PSGs on the IR products, where of that, about 77% recommend one BE study. So this is a drastic change from what FDA has done in the past, recommending 2 studies. So we are reducing the burden on the applicant in terms of submitting the ANDA for the IR products, where you can only submit the one BE study. In terms of the BCS-based biowaiver and PSGs, then this is really, really critical component. What we have in our FDA database is that we have a list of products where we have identified the drug product to be a BCS class 1 or 3. And based on that information, what we have done is we have revised our PSGs to reflect this information. So I hope you find that to be quite useful. However, what we are trying to proactively do is for those products that may be BCS3, but we don't have the data yet in-house, and we get these questions in CSIS a lot, because based on the BCS-based waiver, you can perhaps get the request for waiver for in vivo BE studies, or maybe you don't have to do studies in patients because of some of the restrictions behind it. So I put some link at the bottom of my presentation slides with some of the examples of the PSGs, where we have a recommendations for the BCS-based waiver for those products. Or if you look at the second bullet point, which is the BCS-based biowaiver as an alternative approach. So what we are encouraging you to do is consider submitting the appropriate information, such as permeability data, so that we can review during the ANDA period, and then we can use that for the BCS3-based waiver. And the other proactive approach that we are recommending in our PSGs, you heard in the afternoon's presentation about the suitability. So in terms of the suitability-wise in general, as you know, we are getting lots of suitability petitions requests, and they are mostly related to the different dosage forms or with the strengths. When it comes to dosage forms, you heard from Andrew's presentation that they're mostly the ODT related. And in terms of the dosage forms and strengths, what we have done in the past is that our PSGs were not actually updated with that type of information, but we waited until first ANDA is approved with the suitability petition strength or dosage form, and we would put that type of information in our PSGs. However, what we are trying to do more proactively is that even before petition ANDA is approved for those suitability-related dosage form or strengths, what we have done is that we already revised our PSGs to include that information, so we can give you the option. And I'm going to kind of show some examples. Once again, ODT. So the primidone is the ODT products, and I put 2 options here. So the first option is that you gotta do 2 BE studies for the using the designated RS for the tablet. So of course there's a tablet going from tablet to ODT. So in that case, that's when the petitioned strength, the dosage form is not approved. So you gotta do 2 studies, which is the typical recommendations in our PSGs. However, if you look at the second bullet point, it talks about how there's a 1B study recommendations using the approved ODT as a dosage form. So you have that option once the petition and for ODT is approved. And this is one other example of trying to kind of be a little more transparent and try to be useful as possible for our PSG recommendations. We've been receiving some theses about drug study design related questions. So this is PPI related. And when it comes to acid reducing agent, what is the typical product to use? What's the study durations? Things like that. So when we receive those types of theses, we kind of contemplate because sometimes our general PKBE guidance may have some relevant information, but in some other situations, maybe our specific PSG can kind of give a little more concrete or specific recommendations. So if you look at the that's the PSG, we kind of put the study instruction when it comes to how to do a PPI study. So I gave that example here. But once again, we're trying to kind of balance how much of information to include when certain information may be already available in general BE guidance. But in some situations, when there is a specific study recommended, then we try to be a little more proactive and give us a little more information for your usage. The other topic that I want to briefly touch upon, and I do have perhaps 2 slides on this cross-referencing approach. The one really good example is bupropion, hydrochloride ER tablets. So there are 2 products available with the different strengths as listed in my slide. So one may use, if you already have a approved application for one product with the whatever the strengths, line of strengths, you should be able to cross-reference those BE study findings for your other subsequent submissions for that product. So I kind of put that example in here. And the other example is the oral contraceptives and I'm not going to be going specifics, but there are several products out there with all those different strengths and combination of estrogen and progestins. So how if you can find out exactly what type of information you have in your package, then you should be able to cross-reference those BE study findings when you try to submit applications for FDA's review. So you might be finding this type of information quite helpful. And underneath the slide deck, I put more references for your information. And we are trying to utilize this approach for your usage. The other information, in addition to the PPI type of study that I briefly touched upon, when we put our recommendations in PSGs, we try to be a little more explanatory in terms of the study design and why we may be recommending some specific PK parameters. So I put that example here as well. So for example, if a drug is primarily intended to be released in certain part of the stomach, then in order to adequately characterize the PK, so we say a certain number of blood samples should be obtained in order to adequately characterize the full PK profile, or making sure that we can capture the drug to be released in certain portion of the period. So we put that type of information for your usage, and I hope you find that information useful. The one other example regarding the transparency and all is that we have a good number of PSGs with the narrow therapeutic index drugs, and I put some examples on the right side of my slide here. And then, of course, we do have a very specific recommendations when it comes to the NTI drug products and how to do a study. And underneath that slide, there's one reference, publication reference by one of our staff in ORS about our experiences when it comes to NTI drugs and how we utilize the PSGs for these types of drugs. So with that said, what I am trying to convey to you is that when I'm looking at the PSGs from your perspective, when you read our PSGs, you may be wondering how come FDA is recommending this and that. So I try to kind of put my situation into your head and try to be a little more proactively transparent. And so I hope you find this presentation to be useful. But when it comes to the transparency, once again, so we have updated our PSGs with the latest information. But once again, you have heard from several speakers already that guidance, our PSGs are guidance, and it's not a requirement oftentimes. So I remind our staff members that guidances are guidances. And if you have alternative BE approach or different approaches, then you can always submit the justification along with your applications. So once again, just remember that FDA is very open to the alternative BE approaches or different recommendations. And we are hoping to be a little more transparent with our recommendations, and we do pay attention to your submitted CCs, and we try to reflect some of the CC inquiries to revise our PSGs so that, of course, we realize that when we receive CCs from you with some specific questions, then we understand that there may be some needs for revision of our PSGs. So with that presentation, I'm gonna kind of stop here and welcome the next speaker, Dr. Rajesh.